This is the truth no one dares to tell you straight. Overthinking is destroying your life. Not because you're not smart enough, but because you don't have the discipline to stop circling and start living like an adult. You think you're analyzing, planning, preparing, but the reality, you're just procrastinating. Every time you think a little more, you're missing an opportunity, a decision, a step forward that you should have taken long ago. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, faced fears 100 times greater than yours, but he wasn't paralyzed by his own mind. In this video, you'll see how he did it and how you can too. Don't skip the ending, it'll be the push you need. If you feel the positive energy, don't forget to like this video and share a meaningful comment. You can't stop thinking because you've never learned how to command your own mind. That's the first truth. You think you're deeply reflecting, mindful, carefully analyzing. No, you're being pulled by petty thoughts like a puppet. You don't think to understand. You think because you're afraid to decide, because you don't want to act. You overthink not because you're intelligent, but because you're weak. Thinking becomes a hiding place where you escape reality and painful decisions. Marcus Aurelius didn't sit there writing meditations to whine or ramble. He wrote to remind himself of duty, of limits, of death, and to keep his mind sharp in a chaotic world. He didn't allow himself to fall into endless thoughts, because he knew, when you let the mind wander, it won't lead you to enlightenment. It'll drown you in anxiety, illusion, and helplessness. You don't control your mind because you've never set rules for it. You let it think whatever the hell it wants. You let fear speak. You let emotions take the wheel. You have no principles, no boundaries. So don't be surprised when every night you're spinning in worry, imagining 1,000 scenarios that will never happen. Don't be proud that you think too much. That's not an achievement. That's proof of someone who's never learned to control himself. A real man, by Stoic standards, is someone who knows what's within his hands and what's not. He doesn't waste a second chewing on things out of reach. He doesn't replay the mistakes of the past nor build disasters in the future. He acts. If he fails, he gets up. If he loses, he endures. If he's afraid, he faces it. No excuses, no blame, no dreaming. You can't stop thinking because you don't dare take responsibility. You think that if you think a little more, you'll be more certain, more ready, wiser. But how many years has that little more thinking already stolen from you? How many opportunities? How many sleepless nights? How many times have you stood at a crossroads and didn't dare to step forward? Marcus once said, "Your time is limited. Don't waste it living someone else's life." But I'll add, don't waste it living inside the chaos of your own mind. You are not a victim of your thoughts, unless you choose to be. Want to stop overthinking? First, accept that you can't control everything. Then act on what you can control. Every time your mind wants to run, pull it back. Every time you find yourself imagining, write it down, then tear it up. Every time you hesitate, ask yourself, is this worth the one life I have on this planet? You don't need a new brain. You need iron will. One principle: think less, do more, and only think when thinking serves action. The rest, throw it out. Nothing kills motivation faster than a head that's constantly thinking. You think you're preparing. In reality, you're hypnotizing yourself with endless questions. What if I fail? What if people judge me? What if it's not the right time? Those questions don't take you anywhere. They just keep you stuck. People like to call it caution, but in truth, it's strategic procrastination. You know what you need to do, but you're afraid to do it. You're afraid to be wrong. You're afraid of the feeling of failure, so you let yourself sit down, think a little more, consider a few more percentages, read a few more pages, but you don't move forward. You stay rooted in place and call it preparation. You're not lacking knowledge, you're not lacking plans, you're just lacking courage. And what kills courage is prolonged, never-ending thinking. Marcus Aurelius didn't allow himself to fall into that trap. He didn't have time to sit and analyze every variable. He was an emperor, a soldier, a philosopher. If a decision needed to be made, he acted, based on what was right, not based on emotion. If wrong, he took responsibility. If right, he moved forward. There was no room for drawn-out hesitation. The more you think, the more you build a wall between you and action. You can't jump when you're sitting there measuring the height. You can't win if you don't step into the fight. But you lull yourself with lines like, "I need more certainty," or "I'm waiting for the right moment." That's how you legitimize fear. And a man doesn't make excuses for cowardice. People often ask how to stop overthinking. The answer isn't meditation. It's not journaling. It's action. When you act, the mind is forced to focus. When you start walking, you no longer have time to stop and worry. You think you need motivation to act. In reality, you need action to create motivation. That's what you forgot. Action creates clarity. Action kills doubt. Action turns theory into real experience. You can't stop the thought spiral by thinking more. You can only cut it off with a decisive act. A phone call you've been avoiding, an email you haven't sent, a workout you keep putting off until tomorrow, a decision you've known you needed to make for a long time. Don't wait until you're no longer afraid. Do it. Be afraid and do it anyway. That's how an adult operates. Every time you choose to think instead of act, you reinforce the habit of failure. Every time you choose to act instead of think, you're reforging yourself. The question isn't whether you overthink. The question is, do you have the guts to endure pain to move forward? Because between thought and action, there's always a barrier. Average people stop there. Strong people break it down. Marcus Aurelius was the emperor of a collapsing empire. Enemies on all sides, plague outbreaks, simmering rebellions, a shaken population. He didn't have the privilege to sit around worrying about the future or complaining about fate. He couldn't wait for certainty. He had only one choice: live by reason or be drowned by chaos. In a world where everything could be lost overnight, Marcus created 3 tools to keep himself from being devoured by fear and thoughts that never stop. These tools were not complicated. On the contrary, they were brutally simple, but strong enough to keep an emperor grounded in hell. The first tool is journaling, not the sentimental kind where you complain about the weather, your lover, or your boss not giving you praise. Marcus wrote to remind himself of what he didn't want to forget, about death, about human smallness, about duty, about what's right, about not expecting the world to treat you fairly. He wrote as if speaking to his own conscience, not for fun, but to correct his thoughts each morning before stepping into the battlefield of life. He knew the human mind drifts easily pulled by opinions, temptation, fear, anger. Writing was a way to anchor himself to reality. When you write something down, you're forced to define it. You clarify, you dissect. And when you see what you're really thinking, only then do you have a chance to master it. If you just let them swirl in your head, they'll link together into a toxic cloud, poisoning your entire perception without you realizing it. The second tool is awareness of impermanence. This isn't some hollow philosophy. This is the foundation of all decisive action. Marcus wrote again and again in his journal that we will die very soon. There is no guarantee you'll even be alive by this evening, let alone next year. With that awareness, prolonged thinking becomes ridiculous. You no longer have a reason to hesitate. You no longer have patience for meaningless doubt. You are forced to choose what's right and do it, not because you're certain of success, but because you know time won't wait for you to be ready. The fear of death didn't make Marcus panic. It made him focus. It made him alert. You can't overthink when you understand every decision is a one-shot deal. No redo, no loop. And when you live with that urgency, you'll act like someone with a serious reason to exist. No dragging your feet, no delays, no sitting on the couch counting risks and calling it strategic analysis. The third tool is the ability to detach from thought. This is a skill most modern men don't have. You are not what you think, but you believe the opposite. A thought shows up in your mind and you assume it's the truth. You hear an inner voice and you think it's your own. Marcus was different. He observed his thoughts like watching clouds drift across the sky. No attachment, no identification. If a thought came from anger, he looked at it. If it came from fear, he questioned it. If it came from pride, he dismantled it to see its core. He didn't suppress emotion, but he didn't let emotion decide action. He trained himself daily to master the space between thought and response, and that space is where reason survives. But if you let thought immediately drive action, you're living like a wild animal, not a man. Marcus didn't let himself drift with the first emotional gust. He quietly asked, where did this thought come from? Is it useful? Does it lead to right action? And if not, he let it go. Those three tools, writing, remembering death, and detaching from thought, are not for the faint of heart. They demand the courage to look inward, to face impermanence, and to destroy comfortable illusions. But if you truly want to stop being haunted by a head that spins like a turbine, then you have no other choice. You must learn to think less, think clearer, and live with the intensity of someone who treats every second as the only chance to do what's right. Marcus didn't need therapy, didn't need a meditation app, didn't need a motivational speaker talking about overcoming fear. He only needed those three things. And he ruled an empire while you're still debating whether to start the gym this week or next. Think less, act more. And if your mind won't shut up, force it into silence with discipline. You already know why you overthink. You've seen cowardice hiding under the mask of intellect. You've understood the tools Marcus used to overcome the chaos in his mind. But all knowledge is meaningless if you don't take a step. No sentence holds value unless it's transformed into action. That's where most people stop. They read, they understand, they nod along, then they go to sleep and continue thinking the next day. That's the cycle. And it only breaks when you choose to collide with reality. Action doesn't need to be big, it just needs to be real. It just needs to happen. Don't convince yourself that you need a perfect plan, an ideal time slot, a sign from the universe. That's garbage your procrastinating mind creates to avoid responsibility. You don't need inspiration. You need discipline. You need a slap in the face. And if no one's going to do it for you, do it yourself. Stand in front of the mirror, look yourself in the eye, and ask, what the hell am I waiting for? Want to know how to take stoic action? Start by writing down the 5 things that have been bothering you the most lately. 5 things that keep spinning in your head, stealing your sleep, breaking your focus, paralyzing you. Now, cross out everything you can't control. That's right, cross it out. No explanation, no mercy. If it's not in your hands, it has no right to live in your mind. Marcus called that the discipline of judgment, and he lived by it every day. You keep everything in your head like you can control the universe. You can't accept it. What's left? The things you can control? Act on them, now. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just one concrete step. You're thinking about your health? Go train today, not tomorrow. Worried about finances? Sit down, review your expenses, send that work email, reach out to a new client. Scared of losing your partner? Have the conversation. No guessing, no fantasizing. Meet, look them in the eye, say what needs to be said. Afraid of missing an opportunity? Then take the damn risk. Live right, not safe. Stoic action is not impulsive. It's action based on reason, without waiting for perfection. It doesn't care if you feel okay. It demands that you commit to what's right. Commit regardless of the weather, emotions, or other people's approval. That's why Stoics often stand alone. Not because they don't love people, but because they don't live by the crowd's standards. The cycle only exists when you stand outside and observe it. But when you jump in, when you do something concrete, clear, and irreversible, that circle starts to break. You step out of your head, you return to reality, and reality is the only place where real change happens. Not in thought, not in fantasy, but in sweat, behavior, speech, decision. You don't need to change your whole life in a day. You just need to do the thing you already know is right. Do it, even if it's uncomfortable. Do it, especially when you're not in the mood. That's stoic action. That's how Marcus lived. That's how you break every cycle your mind built to trap you in fear. You can keep living like this, thinking, analyzing, looping the same useless cycle in your head, hoping one day things will magically change. But that day's not coming. There is no miracle, no perfect timing. No one's coming to pull you out of the mess you sunk yourself into. Or you can stand up right now. Do the thing you've been avoiding. Choose what's right. Do it without needing to feel like it. Do it because you respect yourself. Because you're tired of feeling powerless, tired of procrastinating, tired of knowing you could be better but never actually trying. Marcus wasn't born with iron will. He forged it every day, through action, through discipline, through refusing to forgive himself when he was lazy or soft. You can do the same. You don't need to be an emperor. You just need to be someone brave enough to master himself. Don't let undisciplined thoughts turn you into someone you despise. Do it. Do it now. Action is the only answer to questions that have gone too long without resolution. You can keep blaming, or you can become the kind of person even you have to respect. The choice is yours. But time won't wait. Thank you for being here. If you found this video helpful, subscribe, turn on notifications, and like this video. Don't forget to leave a comment so we can spread positivity together.